Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast, brought to you by bet.co.za. Thank you for listening wherever you get your podcasts. Please subscribe and drop a 5-star rating to share this podcast with the rugby world. And today we are actually all here for once in our lives. I've got Shaun, I've got Jared, and I've got Kooks. No one's missing, no load shedding, nothing is happening. We're all just bored and ready to talk some rugby. So finally, we can talk through some of the games from this weekend. We can set out some agendas, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of debating and laughing throughout this podcast. So today we don't have a first phase for this podcast, but we'll probably put one up during the week. So look out for that. We'll probably try to have another podcast to preview the weekend's games. But I think let's just go straight into it and start with, the big discussion point of the week. Kooks, Finn Russell versus Adam Hastings. Are you ready to convert to an Adam Hastings fan?
No, definitely not, because Finn Russell still cooked on the weekend again. I think him not traveling back and forth between Scotland and France is doing wonders for him. And all I'm saying is Finn Russell won his rugby game on the weekend, and the other person playing for the other team in blue didn't. So it's a good start from our Finn agenda.
Okay. We're gonna start punchy with that. We'll park that when we talk about the Scottish game. But yeah, let's start with the URC games of the weekend. So let's start with the South African games, where we had two South African derbies this weekend. We had on Saturday the Lions faced the Stormers. The Stormers came back to win 31 points to 22 after falling behind during the first half of the game. And then the Bulls also beat the Sharks at Loftus on their pink day, winning 40 points to 27. So, Shaun, let's start with the Stormers versus Lions game. Good. Another man of the match performance from Manie Libbok. He combined well with Sasha Ngomazulu for one of the tries. And yeah, I mean, the Lions played really well in the first part of the game, but the Storms were able to come back.
Yeah, hi everyone. It's great to have everyone on board today. Yeah, it was an interesting game. I thought there'd be more from the Lions, but I mean they put in a decent shot, and the Stormers eventually just pulled away. Libbok had a really, really good game. Like, he's really building on everything all the time, and it's great to see. The Lions probably didn't capitalize on the Stormers' start. I think that's the Stormers are sometimes wobbly in the beginning, and then they kind of get everything straight up and back in line and sort it out. And I think maybe the target for teams should be to get on top of them early and kind of keep their foot on the throat a little bit. And the Lions weren't able to do it. But yeah, a couple of good performances from a number of the Lions players as well. It was a great game to watch. And yeah, there's a couple of youngsters that put their hands up again.
Yeah, I think let's keep with the Lions side of things. It looks like a really good performance once again from their loose trio. The Chituka, Fenter, Frankie Horn loose trio, I think, is getting more and more press and getting better and better with each game. But again, another moment of brilliance from Henco van Wyk for the try.
Yeah, he had a really good game again. He's classy. Like, Jared, with your thread you put up on him and everything, I was having a watch, and I think the thing is he does make errors, and he's got the speed to make up for it. But everyone makes errors, especially someone so young. The thing is it's not just his speed that helps him fix the errors. It's how quickly and how early on he recognizes that he's in a bad place or there's something not going according to his plan, and he rectifies it. That's only going to get better at 13 for him. He's a great player. Like, I've been tentative to jump on this, like he's the next best 13 that we have, but it really fits in well with the Springbok setup right now with his age and with who we've got at the moment and how things are working out, that it could really filter down nicely to get him into the mix eventually and have a look at him at 13. But a lot of times I wouldn't be surprised if he starts for the Springboks in the future on wing. He's got the gas to do it, and he's got the IQ to move into 13 if need be. So it might be one of those slow integration spaces, but as superb talent.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing him in the SAA team in November as well. Jared, were you going to say something about Henco van Wyk?
Yeah, Shaun, just join the hype train, man. Come on board. We're all here to this is not a Finn Russell versus Adam Hastings conversation. Like, let's just all jump on the hype train for this boy. Him and Ron Fencer we've got some future in the Lions, man.
Yeah, I love it. I think he's great. The thing is why I'm not jumping on the hype train is not because of him. It's because everyone was like, right, everyone get rid of Jesse Kriel. He's terrible. We've got to put Henco van Wyk in. And I'm like, whoa, guys, that's silly. Like
Jesse Kriel has Twitter haters. I'm so surprised.
Jesse Kriel could be the second most hated Springbok behind Elton Jantjies. Like, it's bizarre. But the thing is, the one thing that we are guaranteed when it comes to Springbok setup is the guys want good defenders. You must be a good defender. You must be on top of your game. You are a defender, and then you can do everything else afterwards. That's why Jesse Kriel is in the mix ahead of other players, because his defense is top class. He's probably one of our best 13 defenders by far, behind Lukhanyo. I don't think anyone can beat him in a Springbok jumper. Henco van Wyk can come close, but he's obviously got time that he needs to put it in. But defense
he's like
is
7
the thing.
as well. So
yeah, exactly. It's the bread and butter is the defense and the understanding of everything, and all the other stuff comes secondary. And with Henco van Wyk, he's got it all. I think everything is at a premium. I think his defense and his attack and his speed is at a premium. So that we're in a really, really, really great space. He's a very different player to Lukhanyo as well. Like, he's quite a different style player. He's more exciting in terms of, I think he's very young, so he wants to get everything up and running ASAP, where Lukhanyo's got a nice level head and he really strikes well, makes those decisions good, where I think Henco is going to take some time to be doing a lot of things to learn a few lessons. But I'm not on the train. He's class.
No, I definitely agree with you. I mean, there's lots of space on that hype train. I think obviously with Henco van Wyk, I think it's a thing of, you know, Jared, like, and Shaun, like, in South African rugby and South African Twitter, once like, Oak has a couple of bad games, it's got to be a Springbok. I mean, like, that's how it is, and Oaks will fight for him. But talking about young 13s, obviously with Hartenberg also in the SAA squad, what do you guys think? I know Hartenberg isn't playing on the wing quite a bit, but I mean, I thought naturally he's a 13. Do you not probably think the Boks are probably thinking with Hartenberg, you offer something a lot more different, especially on attack? I mean, he is a baller. I know that. I mean, Henco van Wyk is as sort as you come on attack, but it's a sort of different threat as to what Hartenberg offers. Would you just be surprised to see Hartenberg in that 13 jersey in the SAA game?
I think they're in to make quite a big decision, because I don't think Hartenberg is going as a winger. He surely has to be going as a midfielder stroke outside back. The thing is, if I had to look at those two players physically and the way that they play the game, initially I probably would have put Van Wyk on the wing and Hartenberg at 13. But Van Wyk has been head and shoulders the best 13, especially young 13 at the moment. So we'll probably see Van Wyk starting at 13, or probably have the inside line at 13 with Hartenberg maybe on the bench or on the wing and then shifting in. But I don't see how they're not going to want to look at both of them at 13, unless there's been a discussion and kind of like an executive decision made that the one will be a 13 and the one will be a winger moving forward. That's the only issue I see coming. But there are unfortunately only 2 games. The cool thing is at 13 we don't have guys that need game time at 13 for the Springboks. So we've got 2 games where we could have 2 13s playing in the SAA side just to check things out, you know?
Yeah, I think Shaun, you're on the right track. I would probably foresee that Van Wyk plays at least the majority of the minutes at 13, and then Hartenberg either plays from the wing or maybe comes in later at 13 or whatever the situation may be. So, yeah, because there's also a bit of a line of people wanting to play at 10. If Ngoma Zulu is the player that's sort of in between the two squads, from the Springbok squad, then you have Goosen and Lombard. Goosen and Lombard obviously they both can play in other backline positions. Sasha as well. Cornel Hendricks also someone that can play 12 and 14. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they come together, and it'll be a little bit of a mixed masala. But I think there might be a bit of tweaking and chopping and changing to see what's the best combination. But yeah, I could definitely see a situation, especially to try and give as much game time as possible to that maybe between the tens that one of the 10 options starts maybe at 15, or someone like Jose can even play 13, or Sasha obviously can play 12, and then the other maybe even a 13 option comes off the bench, and obviously trying to like combine the different talents that are in that squad.
The great thing about Goosen and Cornel Hendricks is they can play multiple positions. They're both experienced. They're experienced Springboks, but they're also experienced players. And with Goosen being able to play 10, 12, 13, and 15, Cornel being able to play 12, 13, 14, and 11, we're in a great position. Like in terms of them selecting players, we're in a good position where we can have them slotting in the middle of whatever we do. So if we want to start Ngoma Zulu at 12, then we can have Goosen at 10. We can have Cornel Hendricks at 13. If we want to start, say Van Wyk at 13, and we want to maybe have Libbok or someone else, maybe Johnny Lombard starts at 10, then we can put Goosen or Hendricks at 12. So, we can really balance out our backline really well. And it's exciting. I hope they do it. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they incorporate what they've got.
Yeah. And then speaking of Springbok options just coming from this game, of course, we mentioned Manie Libbok had a great game. Ngoma Zulu also, stood well in defense, 9 tackles, had 2 turnovers as well. Johan also had quite a busy game himself. Shaun, out of the Springbok squad selections that played on Saturday, who impressed you from the Stormers side?
Well, I must say Evan Roos had a decent game. He's I never thought that he wasn't handy. I just wanted to see him tighten up a little bit more. It was pretty handy all over the show. He did sort of wander off a little bit. So I think Joe Dweba, interesting. He's fighting for many positions at the moment. That's in the Springboks, the SAA, and the Stormers side. So that's on the other side of the coin is an interesting one. I think Libbok was class. Ngoma Zulu was class. He could be a little bit. I think he was a little bit there and thereabouts, but pretty handy. But I think that the Libbok and Ngoma Zulu axis or 10-12 option could be a reality for the SAA side.
Oh, that's very exciting. And if you combine that with the talents of Goosen around there, you have Hendricks you can throw in there, Lombard, Fassi. I mean, we've talked about Van Wyk and Hartenberg. That's, something exciting to look forward to for those midweek games.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the match at Loftus, the Bulls versus Stormers game. The Bulls winning 40 points to 27. It was a very tight game, but then at the end, the Bulls were able to just accelerate away from the Sharks in the last 20 minutes. Jared, let's go to you. I think the one thing that really stood out for me in this game is the performance of David Kriel. I think he was just everywhere for the Bulls. And I think you summed it up well in your tweet that he's not probably the flashiest player in the world, but his skills in every facet of the game is really high.
Yeah, 100%, Salah. I was trying to start the David Kriel fan appreciation club this weekend, and it seems like I recruited a few members. Like when we spoke about the Springbok squads and the SA squads, I think his name did get mentioned, and yeah, we didn't really fight for him too hard, but I think he sort of, he went all Michael Jordan and took it personally out on the Sharks kind of thing. So I think he really stepped up, and it's just remarkable. Every time he plays, every time I've seen him play this season in particular, he's played well, and he's always been. He's probably been the Bulls' best backline player between him and Berger over the start of the season. And he's played 12, he's played 15, he's played 14. I think he's even played 11. So yeah, he really, really impressed, and it was great to see Marcel Coetzee get a try. I had to get it in nice and early, boy.
Yeah, even your mic didn't agree with you trying to sneak in Marcel Coetzee in that conversation.
He has to. There should be like a fine whenever an unsolicited Marcel Coetzee comment, or when Kooks mentions Finn Russell just randomly. It's basically like me saying,
Adam
why
Hastings has
was
to also get it.
yeah, it's basically like me trying to say like where's Ruan Pienaar in the SAA squad? He's been the best performing 9.
At the Cheetahs for sure.
At least now, Marcel Coetzee is going to Japan for a while, so I don't know what Jared's going to do for the next couple of months.
And it's disappointing. They only play like next year when they kick off the tournament, so we're just not going to see him play for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we can move to now just talking quickly about the loose trio situation for the Bulls, because I think they've got something going now with a good rotation of Coetzee, Van Staden, Low when he's back from injury, and via Steenkamp. And now obviously losing Marcel Coetzee has been easily their best player the last season and a quarter. Like, that's going to be a big impact for the team. And again, he had a really good performance on Saturday for the Bulls. And I mean, yeah, he does everything that you need from him. You know, he carries well, he makes big tackles as well, and he's always a nuisance at the ruck. And I mean, look, Van Staden does replace a lot of that, but not everything, because he's, Coetzee as more of an all-rounded loose forward than what Van Staden is. And of course, we talked about this on the space on Friday about the Springbok squad selection. Jared, just in terms of, let's actually look a bit wide into that loose forward battle, because it was quite interesting, quite competitive from both sides. I mean, the Sharks obviously have some quality loose forwards themselves, and the likes of Buthelezi and even James Venter, I think, played well on Saturday.
Yeah, I think they did, and it's quite good for the Sharks in particular, because they've got so many quality loose forwards, even when their Springboks are away, and none of them are really like guaranteed a spot. I think Buthelezi is probably the one player that you can say he's the nailed-on starter for the Sharks. But yeah, even Khaleesi, when they have all their options available, they need to decide whether they're going to start Khaleesi or have him come off the bench. And it's embarrassments of riches. Like Dylan Richardson even had a really nice game, I thought. And yeah, Buthelesi's try right at the end was a great finish. And yeah, I can see why he's been called up to the Springbok squad or the SAA squad. With his running game, I think we will use him quite wide. And yeah, the Bulls back trio also came in nicely into the game. I was shocked that Coetzee got taken off so early. And I couldn't quite understand that call from Jake. And I don't know if you guys have seen, but we seem to have also lost Marco van Staden, or there's a bit of an injury cloud over him with the Springboks. So yeah, we could get another change there. He it seems to have injured his ribs, him and Sabu Nkosi.
Yeah, those were the two injury concerns, I think, from the Springbok squad for coming into this week. Injuries to Van Staden and Nkosi. Probably only Van Staden would have maybe had a small chance of making the squad against squad for this weekend's test. But yeah, in terms of, I think that might, if it's a serious injury, of course, that might open up opportunities for other players. I wonder. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of loose forwards to choose from in South African context, so there won't be any shortage of options, both in the loose trio and the wing. Yeah, I think just on quickly on the Sharks loose trio, I think Vincent Trituka adds so much to that loose trio. There's a lot more balance than there was last season. I think there's just that someone that is able to clear out rucks, make tackles, make himself busy the whole time, and can offer a good line-out option as well. Chituka's not necessarily built like Courtney Laws and Peter Steff and like those sort of lock blindside flank hybrids, but he's able to do pretty much most of the things that they're able to do. And I think this offers a lot more balance than the Sharks early in the season were playing Richardson and Fenter together in the flanks. And, that was fine for certain matches, but you do need, that person that is able to just clear bodies like Chituka does. So, I think that's been a great, we know how good Vincent is, and he's been a great addition to the Sharks. So that's been great. But the negative for the Sharks, Jared, is, I just watched that game and I'm still not sure what the Sharks are trying to achieve when they have the ball in attack. I think it's still, that and the scrum, which struggled a lot more than I expected it to, with, two Springbok capped props in their scrum. Those, but focusing on the attack more, like it still is quite ponderous at times.
Yeah, it didn't seem to be firing at all. And I do have to wonder how much of an impact Jaden Hendricks' absence had to do with it. And it was weird to see that they didn't go and start Grant Williams after that. I thought that selection would have made a bit more sense. And I don't think Cameron White played too badly. I just thought that I think Grant is a better player than him. So when you've lost so many Springboks ahead of the match, why not keep one that's there? Why not keep him in the starting lineup or give him a start? So I thought that was a bit odd. And then losing Ben Tapawai and so early, I don't think helped at all. And we also had Francois Fenter making his first start, and I don't think he's been at the Sharks too long either. I think he's been there about 2 weeks, and he's a quality player, but he did seem a bit unsure about things at times. So I think there's a lot to work on with the Sharks, but I've also just made a whole lot of excuses for them. But eventually the excuses will run out for the Sharks, and they will have to start producing with the superstar team that they do have.
Yeah, Jared, I agree with you. I just think with the Sharks, like you said, with them, it always feels like a constant change of players. And obviously, they've brought in someone like Francois Fenter, they've brought in like Ben Tapawai. I thought obviously he's a massive loss when he's not playing. But especially if he goes off early. But my question, I think also there's another question on the Sharks that also looms large, is what happens when Lionel Cronje and Cohen Bosch comes back. I thought Buddha Chamberlain has slowly but surely, quietly had a solid campaign, URC campaign. In some games he's been very, very good. So now, just the question comes again, the Sharks now, that means if Bosch comes back, what happens to will they end up sticking with Buddha Chamberlain, or will they have more change? And I think with the Sharks, it's going to be a season of dysfunctionality at times, because I just think they're probably going to have to get to a point where they're going to find the best team and stick with those guys, especially in the backline, because I know like in the backline, now Fast is going to be leaving and Grant Williams is gone and Jaden's gone, and so it's more changes to come back when the Boks probably be back December for the Heineken Cup and for the European Cup, and then from there, it's what teams they play then. So I think it's going to be like Thala, you said, like sometimes you know what the Sharks look like on attack. I think it's the Sharks are going to be the definition of horses for courses, because it kind of feels like they've built a squad that covers every single base. If they want to be more attacking, they can throw in Lukhanyo Am. If they want to be not as attacking, they can sort of, the likes of Francois Fenter and things like that and more. So it's like, it kind of looks like, it feels like they got guys for different situations, especially when they lose is how they pick them. And I think that's kind of going to be how the Sharks season goes.
Yeah, I think a big thing that the Sharks will have to do once they get their players back, and obviously within the parameters of the sort of the resting program that the Springboks have, is to try and play their best team in as many games as possible. So just get that, get those combinations going, because it does seem a bit disjointed after phase or two. So the Sharks have, I think, started to add, a pod of forwards and the pass out the back into Chamberlain looping around. And I mean, that's fine. But, you do need that chemistry to make those things work so that people can come into the line at the right time and come in at pace and all that sort of stuff. It does also look like that after the first phase or two, it becomes a find Apelele fussy to do something and to try and break the game open. So it's still sort of the same problems. But Jared, and I think you've also mentioned Kooks, some decent excuses why in terms of new players and being integrated. But I think what they have to do in that December period when they have Champions Cup and URC games is, as far as possible, try to play their team as consistently as possible. So get, I would back Chamberlain, for example, get him to play at 10 for most of the month, assuming doesn't come back until the start of next year. Get Venter and Ronnie Janssen van Rensburg together, try to play the Kolisi Chituka, Buthelezi loose trio together, just get some cohesiveness into the team. I think that will help. And I mean, I think it kind of showed also in the set piece because I mean, partly the set piece has been an issue for the Sharks, but it doesn't help that the blocks are changing close to every week, with Andrews, Krobler playing, you have Yuhu also in the mix as well. Of course, Eben Etzebeth. So those things all need to come together because I think a lot of the issues that the Sharks have is just down to cohesiveness. Sidebar, I was watching the game on the closer commentary, and they are not fans of Hiron Andrews. I'm not sure why. I don't know what the big guy did to them. I think he's obviously a decent player, but obviously has limitations. But they were not feeling that guy at all in this game.
So, what options were they giving? Did they want him off the field for someone else, or were they just not having any of it?
Oh yeah, I mean, pretty much amazing. At 40 minutes, they were like, no, Andrews, his tank is empty. He needs to go off. And I'm like, I guess, but I think there's other options for this as well. They really loved Gaban Grobler though, which is quite funny. But they were not feeling Andrews. I was like, I mean, maybe I'm a bit sympathetic to Hiron, but I didn't see anything that he did that was egregious in the game. But they were not feeling him. So, I don't know. Sean Everett, he might have to listen to those people if he wants some advice.
Yeah, I found that odd because I can only think of one thing that he really did badly, and that's they went up to form the one driving more, and he went ahead and gave away a penalty for obstruction because he made contact with the Bulls before they made contact with him. So that's the only thing I can think of. But poor Hiron, man.
Yeah, you won't always have fans. There was a clean out that he failed to execute on Cornel Hendricks, and then the Bulls got a turnover. So it was a bit like one of those clean out attempts where you make contact, but you just flop over. So Andrews didn't cover himself in glory there as well. Just on the Bulls side, I mean, the Bulls had a really good performance, and it is a bit Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde from the Bulls because, the last few weeks they looked quite pedestrian in Europe, but now Jared, they're back at Loftus, they're back on the hard fields. Now they're getting a lot more pace into their game. They're getting the forwards to come around the corner and to make big carries. I think it's partly obviously playing at Loftus and just playing on a hard track. I think their game is made for that. But I think choosing the front row that they did helped a lot because I think they just picked better scrummagers. They obviously picked Bismarck, who's a better hooker at this stage than Wessels. I think that helped them get, establish some momentum in the game, and then for them to be able to take it over at the end.
Yeah, I think you're right, Thala. Normally, everything starts up front, but I think with this Bulls team, it might have started at the back with Johan Goosen leading the charge. And we all know that he just loves to speak Afrikaans, braai, and play rugby. So he can only do that when he's in Pretoria. He can't do that when he's in Italy. So I think that made a big difference. And he actually had a really, really good game. I think you're spot on that Bismarck led the charge with the pack. I think a hooker scrummaging always goes under the radar a bit, and he's sort of well renowned for his scrummaging ability, and I think that helped with the that helped with Klopper and Steenekamp to get the better of Du Toit and Oshunu. So, yeah, the Bulls pack showed up after being quite anonymous over the last month or so.
Yeah, they definitely did. I think Goosen had a really good game at 15. I think he showed why he's probably more suited for the Springbok purposes to be an outside back than an inside back. Like, just his ability to join the line and to link up with his outside backs is really good, as we saw with some of the tries on Saturday. And yeah, just that turn of pace that he has when he comes around the corner, I think it's something that should be used out back. Zach Berger, I think I don't think there's many scrum halves better in the world than him on at Loftus Versfeld on a dry day.
Yeah, and people seem to buy his dummies as well, which is surprising. Like a lot of guys don't fall for dummies nowadays, and he just every single time he seems to sell it. We have to talk about that Goosen pass to Stravino Jacobs, Thala. I thought that was brilliant. Like the way he stuck his arm out like that to make it incredibly obvious that he was passing backwards while Jacobs was actually in front of him. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I see why, like after watching it a few times, I kind of see why they judged it to be backwards. It's just one of those where I know the laws, like it has come out of the hand backwards, but if it looks forward, which obviously a lot of passes do, physics, blah, 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 blah. But like, it just looks so like almost egregiously forward. You just are like, no, that can't be allowed. But yeah, I mean, credit, and like you, I think, mentioned on Twitter, Jared, credit to Goosen on just exploiting the laws quite well in terms of just extending that arm forward in order to, make it look as backwards-ish as possible. Kooks?
I just think most ref must employ if it's like that marginal way, like that margin like goes backwards and forward. The quality of the pass has got to depend. Like like in rugby league, they've got this. If it goes upstairs and like there's no clear obvious, so that there's a bit of debate and the doubt. They give a benefit of the doubt call. It normally goes to attack. I think you should add that for forward passes. Like if it's like a behind the back pass or pass like that, you always be like, you know what, it's not forward. Play on. Reward the skill.
So, Kooks, it's like in Super Rugby. If the try is sexy enough, the pass wasn't forward, so it was Super Rugby flat.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's why. That's why Super Rugby they've abandoned all tackling as well. It's all about sexy tries and bans. Who needs good defense?
Sexy tries and big hits. Kooks, actually, one more thing I need your opinion on. And Jared after that. Look, if Chamberlain's going to be taken as a first choice fly half, I think he needs to be known as Henry. This Butter thing, I don't think works for a South African fly half. Like, yeah, I don't know if other countries or other teams will take us seriously if there's a Butter Chamberlain that's leading one of our best sides. So I think he needs to permanently change to Henry.
Or cut the mullet off. I mean, that's the other option. Like
one of the two.
You can't put a Chamberlain and have a mullet. Like you've got to sit down and sort of choose. I'm happy to fight for Butter or the mullet, but I don't know if I can do both. I don't know if I would within me to defend both.
If he was a back row or a second row, we could accept it. But as a fly half, I don't think it's acceptable. I think there has to be. We have to draw a line somewhere. Like if it's a pack boy, we can go for it. Or not a fly half.
Yeah, you can't have like those sort of like nicknames and especially at fly half. I think that you have to be taken with a bit of respect and seriousness there. Let's move to just quickly going through the other URC results. Glasgow beat Benetton 37 points to 0. Leinster beat Scarlets 35 points to 5 after scoring a try after 45 seconds. We've talked about the Stormers beating the Lions 31-22. Dragons beat Zebra 47 points to 7. I'm going to come back to the Ulster game. Connacht beat Osprey 22 points to 19. And then Edinburgh beat Cardiff 25 points to 17 away from home. Shaun, I think you had an eye on the Munster-Ulster game, a very tight game. Ulster wins their first game at Thornton Park, I think, in the last few years, if I'm not mistaken. And a big turnover by a certain South African number 8 at the end.
Yeah, it's their first win in 8 years at Thornton Park. Dwayne Vermeulen had a great game. He was involved in the middle of it from the opening whistle. He wasn't rampaging, but he was choosing his moments. I know Jared's spoken about it a lot, and we've all looked at it. He picks his moments, he picks them well. There is a slightly controversial moment where he and one of the other guys were having a little bit of a get to know each other session on the ground, and it looks like he maybe makes contact with his eye. So there's talk of a possible sighting, which we will find out obviously early in the week. But that's aside, whether it's something or not, I didn't really see it. But that aside, Duane Vermeulen had a great game. It was a good game to watch. Ulster hung on in the end. They really looked like they were up for it. They looked like they might pull away a little bit. I had a look at the sides when they were announced, and I thought Ulster could probably roll them, and I knew it would be big. And I just thought Ulster had, just when I saw the sides named and everything, I thought, they've kind of got it. They've got the goods there. But then realizing that they just come off a week on the shitter in South Africa, so I thought maybe it probably wouldn't be able to last the whole way. But Luke Marshall's having a great season at centre for Ulster. He really he's been putting in a number of good performances. And James Hume's come back, and he's a beast. We all know what he's good for. Billy Burns was so. I think he missed a kick to touch, but the youngster for Munster, Jack Crowley, pretty handy. Paddy Patterson at 9 for Munster, pretty good. But when you looked at the loose trio of Ulster, Geordie Murphy was named on the bench. It was a late call-up. He had to come into the starting lineup. You've got Geordie Murphy and Duane Vermeulen in your loose trio. You really could do a hell of a lot worse. Those are two legends of the game, and they know their way around a rugby field. So, and they both put in a good performance. Great win for Ulster.
Yeah, and just also a quick shout out to Edwin Edogbo, who made 24 tackles in the game. I mean, the 19-year-old hooker is amazing.
He's a beast. He's incredible, and I'm so glad you brought him up. He's big, he's strong. He seems so calm on the field, like he doesn't seem to get angry or rattled. Even when Duane Vermeulen and one of the Munster guys were having words, he didn't come and dive in on anyone. He just basically bear hugged Duane Vermeulen to try and lift him off, and almost got it right. Like, the man is a beast. He's got plates for hands, and he's got a flippin' mature rugby brain already for someone who's 19. That kid is going far.
Yeah, I would not say no if Andy Farrell picked him in the Irish squad already. I think especially Ireland always looking for that like big lock, that sort of like Will Skelton type of repellent. Bennett Smith type of repellent. Dogbo could definitely grow into that in future. I think, big shout out to James Hume for coming back. Let's go to the test matches. So there were 2 autumn international matches that happened this weekend. The Australians and New Zealanders both played. Australia played Scotland and won 16 points to 15 in Murrayfield. But let's start with the All Blacks winning 38 points to 31 against Japan. Bit of a seesaw battle, and New Zealand was just able to hold on and to take things home. Yeah, this match had a little bit of everything in it. Some good things, some a horrible red card for Brodie Retallick as well. Let's start with you, Kooks. Yeah, as it's sort of back to bad New Zealand, a little bit of inconsistencies in their game, and looking a bit vulnerable at times. What's going on with New Zealand?
Yeah, it's so hard to make what's happening at the All Blacks at the moment. I know a lot of people look at it like, they made quite a few changes, and there's like Beneno and Richard Wonga, they won the flanks, and they mix up the loose trio. But it's weird, like, even in the All Blacks, sort of, when they scored a couple of good tries in the stage, I think they were up about 10 to 12 points, and not one time did I feel comfortable or they looked comfortable. And I'm trying to put my finger on it. I just think maybe yeah, like it's hard to say it's good or bad All Blacks. I just think they're an inconsistent side who can turn it up on their day. And I thought this weekend that I thought Japan was very good. I thought I thought they had chances to win that game. I thought they defended very well. I thought, yeah, I mean, no, we spoke about it leading up to, I mean, off air, but oh, geez, man, some of the refereeing calls that came out on the weekend, like the skew throw for the All Blacks' first try, man, it's a momentum killer. You look at that. If that skew throw, which the Huntsman still, you could see almost to the referee saying skew, like if that gets called, it's not 7-0 there. I mean, in Japan had kept the All Blacks twice up, then it could be a different game. You know what I mean? But like it's, yeah, so the All Blacks are at the moment it sort of feels like a side that they can still put away, they can still win the odd big game here and there, still score some crack of tries if needs to be. The one, I mean, the Civil Reese trial, that set piece of a line out. I mean, that's as best as you can. So there's a lot of positive. I mean, I thought I thought Tui was a shake showed what he can do at 12. He had nice little touches, but yeah, I think with the All Blacks, I think it's so hard to gauge where they are because they could just go and run down and win the next 4 games on tour and then go lose to Argentina come next year again. So you actually don't know what to make of that side.
Yeah, I think it's almost like you wouldn't be too surprised also if they lose next week to Wales and then beat the rest of their teams. Like, I'm feeling very strongly that probably Wales, but possibly Scotland. One of those two will get like their first win in like a very, very long time against New Zealand in this
Not
tour.
Scotland.
It's the best time to do it.
Not Scotland. It has to be.
Scotland have a class fly half in this from this week onwards, so I think they can do it, man.
Did you see how they were carving it up from 10 this weekend? Incredible stuff.
And that's the second best fly half that they've picked.
The other one was playing the Premiership this weekend, wasn't he?
Amazing playing the Premiership for sure.
If it is Scotland, it cannot be Scotland. Scotland cannot win a test this whole window. It has to.
Imagine Blake Kinghorn wins the game for Scotland against New Zealand. Finn Russell will just have to go to Japan. I think there's no other choice that he has.
Exactly. And even imagine if they do it with that hog as well. Then there will be a fallout, man.
Your cat amongst pigeons for sure. But let's keep on this Japan game.
Sorry,
Go
at
Kooks.
If Scotland does do it against the All Blacks, the boys will be back in just in curfew time as well, knowing Hogs and Russell's antics after dueling. So the boys will be back on time. So there's a win-win if they do anyway for Gregor Townsend.
Oh yeah, okay. We're gonna come to Scotland in a few moments. Jared, I think just from the Japanese side, I think 2 very impressive players was Kazuki Himeno. I think we all know how great he is, but also Dylan Riley. I think he, at least for me, he was a player I was not aware of until the July tour that France had. But he seemed to have he played really well on that tour and was a really big physical presence in the midfield. And he seems to have continued that in this test match.
Yeah, he's really taken to the Japanese setup quite well. And I've seen him a bit when Damien was playing at the Wild Knights. It was him that was outside of him. So I saw a few bits of his play when going to look at what Damien got up to on the weekend kind of thing. So yeah, I thought he was impressive. I thought their lock, Derns, was also very, very good. He got that charge down try. That's nice that the Japanese have some nice big boys in the pack that can get them to that level where they need to be, especially in the lineouts. But 100% right. Himeno is just the man is flipping world class, and I'm going to throw it there, Thala. I know we've been having the chat about world class, but he really is. Like, he plays 6, 7, and 8, and he's the Japanese Marcel Coetzee. There we go.
Sure, that's such a mean thing to say to him. I mean, he does get selected for his international team at least.
Regularly.
Yeah, and if Marcel Coetzee was Japanese, he would be chosen for them as well all the time.
Yeah, off the bench for Himeno.
But
but he's very good. I think he's very much borderline that sort of world-class standard. And I mean, like, at least in the World Cup, in the 2019 World Cup, he was definitely in that conversation.
I haven't seen too much of their flyhalf. I don't know if he just hasn't had a standout game for me. But I thought he was great as well against New Zealand. Like, he was very calm throughout, and he seemed to run their attack with little fuss.
Yeah, Takuya Yamasawa. I think he played a little bit he did play in the French series as well. I think they are sort of transitioning into him. But yeah, I think he is quite tidy there. Shaun?
One thing about him though, he's accurate and solid off the tee. If I'm not mistaken, he kicked all his kicks, or maybe he missed one. But very, very handy. He was slotting almost all the kicks, so it's a great start for your 10. You know.
Gents, going to the New Zealand side, because I mean, well, okay, so Japan's going to play England this weekend. And yeah, as Jamie Joseph mentioned, England will be a much stricter test for Japan than the All Blacks were. That's very naughty by him. But on the New Zealand side of things, they are probably going to lose Brodie Retallick to a suspension. Do we have any idea about if the Barretts are going to come back this week? Savia, all the players that will start this week.
Yeah, they all pretty much back, aren't they?
Okay.
Yeah. I was going to say they have to get them back because they've lost Sam Cane and Dan Coles, the grub. But they, to be honest, I don't think losing Coles is a massive thing. I don't think he should be. He's not in the top 2 hookers at the moment, so it's probably a blessing in disguise. But they lose Sam Cane as well, so they're already scrambling. You know, they're going to lose Cane, Retallick. So they're going to have to get the Barretts back because they're going to need a Scott to fill in somewhere, you know?
If I'm not mistaken, the Barretts were in Japan for during the game kind of thing. And it's just that they arrived
yes, they
late
arrived
in the
the
week
day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were, there's a photo of them, but all 3 of them on bikes, you know, flushing out the legs. So they're definitely rejoined. They'll definitely be available if there's no injuries.
Yeah. And Shaun, I agree with you. I think getting Coles out of the squad is an upgrade, but they still have Cody Taylor in there. So there still is a worse hooker in the All Black squad than Dane Coles at the moment. And yeah, Asafa Moore is a handy replacement.
Yeah, Cody Taylor is on bad form. He's not a bad hooker. That guy, he's just having a bad run of form. You can't say that he's a bad hooker. He was comfortably the best in the world for a while.
I haven't seen a player dip this much in one season in my life. Like
yes.
He's gone from being in the top bracket of hookers in world rugby to maybe the 4th choice that New Zealand should be picking. Like, they're picking him because of his test caps and they rubbish at the moment. Otherwise,
he was only selected because there was no other hookers to pick.
and they're going to let Liam Coltman go to Leon.
I know. His drop-off has been... I mean, they were talking about him finishing his career being the best All Black hooker. If he just carries on doing his thing, he would have finished probably one of the best All Black hookers ever. And now he's gone down to whether we're worried he's going to miss out on a Super Rugby contract.
And he's added like 6 more caps since that Test 2 loss to Ireland. I thought his career was done after that game. Like, to me, I wouldn't have picked him. And he's added like 6 or 7 caps this year since then.
He's too classy. It's basically like seeing Malcolm Marx or Bongi Mbonambi go into such bad form that we don't select him in the squad. Like, you don't not do that. Like, Cody Taylor is brilliant. He's just having a bad season, but the shit good ratio of his form is something that has never been seen in rugby before.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see what happens with the All Black squad, or the team named this week. I think we didn't mention them, but Will Jordan and Leicester Fanganuku also stayed at home. I don't know if they'll be able to join the squad in time for Saturday. So that's, also back 3 issues there. And then
Fanganuku's out. I think he's out for the rest of November, but I know he's out this week.
Yeah, because Mark Tilley is in the squad. And yeah, interesting to see that Roger Tuvasashek, Kooks mentioned he had a pretty good game. He's now been, I guess, demoted in a sense to the All Blacks XV team that's going to play against Ireland A on the week. So that's him, Damian McKenzie, and Patrick Tuipulotu. I mean, very good players, and they're going to play against a very strong Ireland A team. But yeah, I think RTS still has quite a bit to prove if he wants to be a regular for the All Blacks.
I'd have an issue with that decision, but Anton Leonard-Brown made his comeback this weekend, so it looks very much like they'll probably start him at 12.
And Thala, you also left out your favorite All Black centre, Braden Ennor, in that conversation. He's also been dropped to the All Blacks 15.
Now there's a guy. There's a guy lucky to be on tour. He's lucky to be on tour.
Sorry, there's no way you're going to say that Braden Ennor is lucky to be on tour when you mentioned Fergus Burke a week ago. So leave Braden Ennor alone, please, Thala. Please leave Braden Ennor alone. If Stephen Perifet is playing, he's in the mix. Fergus Black's in the mix. Braden Ennor is more than capable of becoming an All Black. Please. Let's not do this, guys. Let's not do this.
The standards have dropped at the All Blacks. If Braden Ennor and Stephen Perifet are getting serious minutes for the All Blacks, it's getting very, very scary hours for the All Blacks.
Feels like this podcast has turned into the All Blacks Comedy Central roast show. So, which player do you guys want to put next up for some slander?
No, it's hectic. The thing is, I got Braden Ennor stocks very, very early when they're still in the 20, and I've got about 1 or 2 left before I sell them. I'm about to. I'm just keeping one.
You must have lost a lot of money, eh?
Tons. It's been like an Apple Steve Jobs experiment. If I do catch it on one, it's gonna be amazing. That's I'm holding on, but like I think I'm one more Super Rugby season away from I need to sell my stocks now.
Sell your stocks on Canterbury Dan du Plessis. Please, Kooks. Do it for me, man.
There might be God with him playing in the All Blacks XV now.
Yeah, but yeah, so be very interesting. I think, I think we'll maybe not necessarily, we'll talk about it late in the week in the preview, but if there is a chance for Wales to spring a surprise on the All Blacks, it's Saturday. I think there's going to be a few challenges that the All Blacks will have on this tour. Let's move to the other game. So that is Scotland losing in the last few moments against Australia. Scotland built up a healthy lead, 15 points to 5, and then Australia came back in the third quarter, and they were able to get the lead in the last 10 minutes. Black Kinghorn had the penalty to win it at the end, but unfortunately he missed it. Jared, I think it wasn't the best game in the world, to put it nicely, but I think the one thing that can be taken out of this game for both teams is both of them are very inconsistent. Like, they'll have a good 20 minutes and then they'll be absolutely horrible for another 20 minutes. And I think both teams have to sort out some of there's some positional things that both teams have to sort out in this November tour, because some of the players that have been backed in some of the key positions, be it scrum half or, in the halfbacks or in the centers or wherever, they didn't produce the goods on Saturday.
Yeah, Thala, I think you're 100% right. It was two very inconsistent teams taking on one another. Like the Wallabies, dominated with ball in hand, but were rubbish at the breakdown. So somebody like Rob Valentini would get over the advantage line, and then all of a sudden Jamie Ritchie's coming out of the breakdown with the ball. So it was a really mixed match kind of game. Like, even Scotland's try all came off of a Bernard Foley mistake where he fumbled the ball and just forgot that he could dive on it. So Kinghorn just pounced on it and went and scored. And yes, it's an incredible pace for from Kinghorn to get there and score that one. And I think one of the big takeaways Australia can do from this game is that they know now that if you need to kick the ball out to win the match, give the ball to Nic White. I think that's the main lesson they must take away from it.
Oh, guys, Nic White is in the top 2 scrum halves in the world. And by top 2, I mean comfortably. You guys can fight out who you feel number 1 or number 2 is. I don't really care. But Nic White is pure class. I just want to add one other thing. I hate that the referees are coaching the players. I hate that the referee was saying to the Wallabies and to Nic White, going, you cannot kick this ball out on the full because it won't be full time. You have to make sure it touches the ground first. Like, that's the kind of stuff that they shouldn't be doing. That's not the referee's job. A referee's job, and unfortunately we do it a lot with like roll away tackler or use it 9. It should be the ball's available and 5 seconds later, thanks for coming, and all that. Like telling players penalty to end the game. Oh, if you want to end the game, you must tap and kick out. That they shouldn't be doing that. Anyway, sorry, my rant is over. Nic White, top 2 scrum halves in the world by far.
Yeah, I think Australia, they probably would say they are justified a bit of luck and a bit of leniency from a ref at the end of a game after what happened at Bledisloe 1. So they were probably just, there was probably a little bit of a balancing of the books there. But yeah, I think it was quite a nice contrast to what happened on that game. I think White was constantly communicating with the ref to see what's happening and like where he is. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Sharky, I think the instruct or the explanation from the ref came after White asked. So I think it was good to engage the ref so that like he puts the ref at knowledge about what he's about to do. And I think he sort of managed that situation a lot better than what happened at Bledisloe 1. So I guess the Australians are learning about how to manage these end of game situations.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think, but I was thinking like with that event, I mean, that's probably one of the smartest plays I've seen on rugby field for a long time. But Thala, you mentioned both at the start of you mentioned Australia and Scotland. They're both inconsistent sides, but it's such a weird thing. I mean, obviously Scotland, it always feels like they're building. It always feels like they're sort of trying to add things. But you know, after I'd say 4 or 5 years under the Townsend regime, you sort of feel like they need to get some sort of purchase. I mean, it's a pity for Black Kinghorn would miss that kick, which anyone would have missed out. But I thought he still had a strong game considering everything he had gone through in the week with obviously his Finn playing and not playing. But with Scotland with Gregor Charles, it starts to feel now like, when are they going to turn that corner? Because I mean, you had that tweet other time about, like, even with Finn, they always they beat England every year. But when are they actually going to start coming around the corner and make that run? At least the Wallabies, it's like they all seem consistent, but I've always felt under the David Rennie regime that they look like a side that's almost building a lot more for 2027 as opposed to 2023. I think with them obviously hosting the World Cup as well, I think next year they can. I think if the Wallabies to make a deep run into the World Cup, it'll be quite surprising since they started with the inconsistencies they have and they struggle to put together 2 good performances in a row. But it's all weird. Like, you take 2 sides where the Wallabies still feel like they're still building a journey. With Scotland, it's like, okay, cool. How long are we going to keep doing this for? How long are we going to keep on? Yes, we should have won. Oh, but they're also building. They've added this. I just think, like, with Scotland, something's got to give, especially in this window coming up now, and the number of tight losses. They always keep finding ways to lose. Because I think that game on the weekend is a game, especially at home, is a game that they should have won.
Yeah, and I think it follows from what happened in July in Argentina. Like, they conspired to lose that game in the last quarter as well, and just sort of allowed Argentina to come back and to win at the buzzer or at the hooter. So yeah, there is something, I guess it's similar in the sense with Australia, because it's both teams that are sort of in their growth stage. But the only difference is that, Australia can go sort of behind and say, look, our team is relatively young. Scotland's team's not that young. And I mean, apart from obviously the overseas players that were missed this weekend, it is still a team full of experienced players. So it is a bit, it's concerning that they're not able to manage these late game situations, because it was weird watching them in the last quarter. I mean, it started with that yellow card that probably should have been a red card for Grant Young for that clean out on Tate McDermott, where it was only pushed down to a yellow because he hit him with his bicep. I don't understand that from Luke Pierce. But then after that, almost every phase they had issues at the line out, they had issues with the kicking, they had issues with the handling, and it just compounded itself. And there was just not that experienced person to calm things down. And I mean, as much as, you know, the Finn Force or the Finn Church, or whatever you want to call it, was calling for him after the end of the game, and I'm not saying that Blake Kinghorn had a good game at all, but we've seen them, you know, the Finn Russells and the Stuart Hoggs make horrible hashes of the end of games when they're in the team. So something has to give. And, if these players, especially the Scottish players, are as good as we think they are, the likes of Watson and Russell and Harris and Hogg, they're British and Irish Lions. They're the first big batch of Lions that they've had in years. If they're as good as they say they are, they need to be better at managing the end of games and to win these games that they're supposed to win, or like to sneak these 50-50 games, and they just weren't. But yeah, I think at least on the Australian side, it's good to come out of to come out on the winning side of these sorts of games after what happened against the All Blacks a month back. So I guess that's good confidence for them. And yeah, the Wallabies seem to be a team now that, especially because they have a horrible tour coming up. They're literally playing England's Six Nations schedule, playing the 5 other Six Nations teams 5 weeks in a row. And, I was saying on Twitter that if they lost the Scottish game, I could definitely see a world where they lose the other 4 matches, and just, the losses compounding on each other, and even Italy fancying their chances against them. But now that they've won this game, I could definitely see them getting 3 matches, 3 out of 5 wins, and maybe even 4 if they could sneak a performance maybe against France in this first week. So I'm hoping that this is, but I think we know better now than to praise the false dawns of these 2 teams especially. I think they're just going to be, at least for the next 2 years, like Kooks said, they're probably building for beyond 2023. They'll be just 2 teams that are just a bit up and down. But it's funny, I feel a lot better about Rennie and him losing and having like a 40% win record than I do about Gregor Townsend, who probably has a higher win percentage. But it just seems like, I think it's because it's more experienced players, and also Townsend, it does seem like there is some personal issues that he has with, some of his best players, of course.
I just think, like 4 years ago, obviously, Scotland lost in the group stages, and now they're sort of in a harder group with Ireland and the Springboks, and they could have arguably, they should. I mean, they're not favourites to get through the group, but when you look at that 4-year span, you look at it differently. Like, what has changed from 2019-23, and it's not much, because it felt like they're still going a little bit backwards. They're still not winning the big games. The only thing that's changed is that they just know how to beat England week in and week out. If the World Cup was and Hans job was predicated on beating England, he would be the best coach of the world. But even with Australia, I know they got the world's most terrible schedule. But like, if I'm coaching a young team, it's kind of a schedule that you kind of want. It's sort of exposing sort of your youngsters into tough situations, sort of gauging them. That's how I was so surprised he was playing someone like Bernard Foley. I'll still go with someone like with Nona Lolesio for this campaign. You want to have him in that mix. Play him in Europe. Let him play 5 games in Europe. Let him build your test out, and sort of. It's so weird of the Wallabies. I know they play France next week. They shouldn't win that game, but if they win, I wouldn't be surprised. That's how I feel of the Wallabies, this young Wallabies side. Is if they do win, I wouldn't be surprised they win a big game. But also, if they lose by 40 points, I also wouldn't be surprised as well. And I think that's also scares me with them in the World Cup. They could you just don't want to catch them in the semi-final or catch them in the quarterfinal. Especially, they might be going the easier route in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think things are setting up quite nicely for them in that sense. And yeah, I mean, like Cook said, it wouldn't be surprising if they do somehow, turn up. Like, the Australians are the type of team right now where you could see them winning as France somehow, but then losing as Italy next week. Like, all results are possible with the Wallabies at the moment. just to close off on this, a big return to form for Michael Hooper. And yeah, he's obviously returned from the team from taking a personal mental health break. And he, as Michael Hooper does, he put in a really good performance. Jared, I thought Michael Hooper would be eased in a little bit and, would sort of get a game or two just to get his feet under him. But obviously that man is not human and he's able to just walk into a test match with very little preparation.
Yeah, 100%. And he would have kept himself fit. And I think he said as much, like he returned back and his first day off, he was out running just to keep fit. So, yeah, he's a hell of a player, a hell of an athlete. And, yeah, when last did Michael Hooper really have a bad game for the Wallabies? Even when he's got yellow carded or red carded, he was at a stage one of the most sin bin players in world rugby.
2001, maybe.
That
maybe
10 minutes.
Maybe 1992 was the last time he had a bad game ever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he just constantly, he's brilliant, constantly. So I wasn't too shocked about that. It's great to see him back, especially when he's not playing against the Springboks. It's always nice to watch him play. So yeah, he even outplayed Watson. I'll just throw it out there. I think Jamie Ritchie maybe got the better of him, but he definitely outplayed Hamish Watson.
Fully agreed. Big shout out also to Len Ikitau, who had a great game in defense, and he made some breaks for the Wallabies in the back line. Nic White, we've talked about him cleaning up things, and just I think he performed quite well. He definitely should start over either McDermott or Gordon. And Jamie Ritchie, his first game or second game as captain for Scotland, and he played really well himself. So I think there were some good performances there. Also, actually for a Saffers Abroad angle, Pierre Schumann was really good on Saturday, Jared. I think he had 2 turnovers won and another turnover penalty.
Yeah, and I think he was pretty solid in the scrum as well. So yeah, I thought he was great. I quite like the impact that Viepa now had as well. He seemed to want to get the ball in hand as much as possible. Whether that's a good idea or not is another conversation. But I thought he was also very good off of the bench. Thala, I do want to hear your thoughts on Tom Banks because you mentioned Ikita on the good side of the Wallabies, but I don't know, how do you feel about Tom Banks?
Oi, I'm calling him now ACT Andries Coetzee. I don't know if it's that. I don't know. I don't think he's bad. Same with Coetzee. I don't think he's bad, but I think he makes bad decisions. And there's just some things where Banks does, and you're just
when he
what?
is bad, he's really bad.
Yes. So just really compounds on him.
Yeah. I tell you, he's up and down with what he does, but he's when he played some games where he was doing the business, and then he seemed to kind of cement his way in, and then just kind of faded off and away, and has been continuing to play, but just carries on playing badly.
Yeah, I think we will have to see. Yeah, I think we'll have to see what Dave Rennie does going forward with the fullback position, because I don't think Banks is the one to carry you forward. Some Australians have talked about getting Jock Campbell in at fullback. Obviously, he's only played off the bench in this test. You can play Andrew Kellaway there. I think a lot of Australians are cited about, I'm going to butcher his name now, but Mark Nawaqanti Nawase, the Wallaby.
That's a tough one.
So I think he has a lot of fans there as well. So we'll have to see how Rennie manages it, because Banks can't be the future. Shaun, I think let's move on to the Women's Rugby World Cup. Just quickly, just going through the results. Good wins for France. They beat Italy 39 points to 3. They did struggle in the first half, and it seemed like Italy was able to just keep themselves in the game for the first 60 minutes, and it was only 10 points to 3, and it looked like maybe it just wouldn't be France's day because they were just finding ways to not score tries. And then France just pulled away in the last quarter. England on the Sunday beat Australia by 41 points to 5. Of course, the England machine just keeps going on. Canada won 32 points to 11 against the USA. So England and Canada will face each other in the one semi. And the host, the Black Ferns, they're going to face France in the other semi. The Black Ferns winning 55 points to 3. Shaun, I think you had an eye on this match. A big match in terms of records. Portia Woodman becoming the highest try scorer in Rugby World Cup history. So that's both for men and women. And yeah, I think just a great game for the Black Ferns backline. I think the likes of Fitzpatrick and Demont and Ruby Toy were just awesome on Saturday.
Yeah, they're a machine. Just on things, I was very, very surprised with England's rout of Australia. I thought Australia would put up more of a fight. But other than that, the results kind of seem to go the way that most people expected. I think that was the only blowout that I was surprised about. But yeah, New Zealand, Wales, I tell you, they are, yeah. Aisha on the one wing, Portia on the other wing, and Ruby at fullback is absolutely deadly. And they have options. They've got the Black Ferns have options in the back line. They can move people around. They've got they've got other centers to use that didn't even make the match day 23. So they're really, really in a good space. It's all pretty much setting up for the final that we're all hoping for, New Zealand versus England. But Sarah Hirini is an absolute machine as well. She's been performing nonstop. She's a beast. She's a beast flanker. And I tell you, I'm just super impressed with the Kiwis. They all of the Black Ferns talk about like how their eyes have been opened to the game with the coaching staff. What they're speaking about is different. The things that they've been exposed to, the thought process, like how to manage things. They're looking at the game differently. So you've got these talented individuals that were and are of the best in the world in the women's game, and they're all looking at this rugby and this training and this new world of that's being exposed to them like excited kids that want to sort it out. And that's dangerous for me. That's flippin' dangerous. They've got so many things, like the story around them going all the way and winning would be one of the greatest stories. It would rival the Springboks winning the 1995 World Cup, I feel, in terms of a story. And I think England are in for a problem. I really do. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what New Zealand bring on Saturday in the semi-final. The Black Ferns are on very much, they're growing week by week. So yeah, we're in for a great final 2 weeks.
Yeah. Kooks, we are still online or on in course for that New Zealand-England final. But I mean, England and Canada will be a tough match, I think, but England should be favorites. New Zealand, France will be very interesting. I don't think the French women's team will be very easy to beat. I think they've got a really competitive pack of forwards. They've got a backline that can produce some magic. But yeah, I think that New Zealand-England final matchup is the one everyone wants. It's like kind of like that, when you have a World Cup and you want a football World Cup and you want Brazil and Argentina to face each other. You want these two titans to go against each other.
You definitely do. Just like whenever it's a rugby, the men's World Cup, you always want the Springboks and the All Blacks to meet in the final. Then something always happens. There's a sneaky feeling for me that I worry about that an upset's always due. I always feel like in these big tournaments that there normally is one big upset in the playoffs, and I think that could be the New Zealand-France game. I think England will probably. It's funny how in this tournament. I mean, yes, England's been dominating. I mean, their scores have looked good, but sometimes you sort of you look at the comments on Twitter about the performances and people are like they're not looking as convincing as they should be. They like, especially in their first game against Fiji. I mean, they didn't win by 80 points, but I mean, like, it's the way they've been playing at the moment. They've been steamrolling South Sudan. I wouldn't be surprised to see them. I know Canada is a strong side, and I think it's going to be a great game, but I think England should be too strong. But I think I think if there is an upset, it could come in the New Zealand-France game. And I really want to watch New Zealand versus England. I think that could arguably, I think it probably will be the biggest game of rugby this year. And I think for spectators' point of view and the World Cup's point of view, I think that will be the most perfect ending. New Zealand at home, England with a streak. It sounds like a WWE sort of connotation for the trophy. I think that's the ending that everyone wants to see.
So are the Black Ferns Brock Lesnar?
The Black Ferns are definitely Brock Lesnar. I think you might have to get Limp Bizkit to do sort of a promo version like they did for Steve Austin versus The Rock, just to set the tone for that game.
Yeah, Jen, so I did have a listen to the podcast that you guys had that last week about talking about the Women's World Cup. And thanks for hanging me out to dry and pretty much kicking me off the podcast. And thanks for letting me come back this week. But if I can just throw my 2 cents in there.
Layla was busy this week, Jared. Sorry. Layla wasn't able to do a podcast on a Monday.
I'm happy to fill in, gents. I'm happy to fill in. But I think everyone's... I'm going to throw my 2 cents out there, and it's helped by the fact that Thala said he has a good feeling about Italy upsetting the French, and that went completely pear-shaped for him. So a good 30 points in the semi-final is quite a nice buffer for me to have. But I think everyone's sleeping on Canada, and if there is one team that's going to surprise England, I think it can be Canada. So I'm going to say Canada is going to make the World Cup final in England's streak just like that. And we have a Canada-New Zealand final.
Spicy. This is why, Jared, you just can keep your job and Layla will have to wait at least a few more weeks before taking over your spot.
Yeah, I can't just jump on the bandwagon with you, Oaks. I have to give some sort of extra feedback.
Yeah, I think on the other hand, you can definitely say the same about the Black Ferns, that they're going to have their first big, facing their first strong opponent of this World Cup when they face the French. Obviously, if we look back at the November tour that the Black Ferns took, they were beaten by the French by 30, 40 points, and the second test they were beaten by 25 points. So, there's going to be a big contest, and I think we'll see what the difference is between, the Black Ferns. They were obviously playing their first test matches post-COVID and everything, and now they have Wayne Smith and Ted and pretty much the whole of the 2011, 2015 World Cup squad helping them out. Let's see what difference they can make into the team. So I think there's going to be a lot. Yeah, I think these two matches, both of them will be quality, and I think either way, there'll be some sort of final. But Kooks, I'm also worried that there's going to be a surprise, and I don't want it to happen now because we're so close to that, ideal final from happening. But I think there is a very strong possibility that either Canada or France can spoil the party. But at least with France, if they win and England wins, we still get a la crunch happening. So that's definitely a good second prize. But Canada making it will be a bit random for everyone else.
I've got Canada vibes with Canada. I've got like that Australia 2015 vibes from them. Like nobody talks them up, and then all of a sudden they're in the final. Boom! Like let's go.
Just to finish off with the podcast, we're not going to go into detail because we're going to hopefully have another pod later this week, previewing everything. But just to focus our eyes on the Springboks squad, as Jared mentioned, the only injury concerns are to Marco van Staden and Sibongosi. So for all intents and purposes, we should be able to play our best 23 on Saturday. I'll just ask each of the boys, so that when the pod comes out after the team, we can all look like fools. I'll just ask each of the guys for like their one sort of like sneaky surprise, like either tactic or selection that they would do to play Ireland. Like mine would have been, if Van Staden was fit, I would have actually played him and Kwagga Smith in off the bench, and then just have a lot of fetchers on for the bomb squad and just try to put pressure on the Irish ruck and try to slow down their quick ball. But let me start with Jared. What would be your sneaky surprise tactic? Or selection?
Maybe it's not really a tactic, but sneaky selection is Jason Jenkins in the team and Sasha as well. Those will be my two sneaky selections. And both of them on the bench. Sounds a bit boring, but yeah, and throw the big starts with Kitsoff, Marks, and Malherbe. I think that has to happen this weekend.
Yeah, especially against probably Furlong, Porter, and Dan Sheehan. I know Furlong is struggling with an injury, but yeah, that I think we'll probably need to play fire with our front row. Kooks, I think you are definitely excited about the Willems, Colby and LaRue link up happening on Saturday. Would that be your sneak or surprise tactic?
Yeah, I think that would have been mine. Obviously, Willems, Willie, and Colby starting, but another one that I think I had as another one for me is having a 5-3 split. Sort of, I know the Boks have gone 6-2 most of the year, and then sort of have Faf, Manie Libbok, and Curtly Arons on the bench. I do think that with France staying probably out and Damien Willems are probably down to probably play down as down probably should play 10, start at 10 this weekend. I think it's kind of hard to not have a second fly from the bench. I do think that we could potentially see Damien Willems probably shifting to 12 and Monaco coming in at 10. I think the Ireland will give us a threat at the background. I think I do have a sneaky feeling that there'll be points this weekend. So yeah, I think I would love to see a 5-3 split with, like I said, the hoopers got a hoop. So I mean, if you're gonna go from Willems, Willie and Colby, then off the bench you got Curtly Arons and Manie Libbok, I'll be a very, 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 very happy man.
Jared, you just mentioned on the chat that there's talks about Ches and Colby playing at fullback and Curtly Arons are playing at wing. I mean, that would be surprising.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's quite interesting that they going for Colby at fullback. They say it could happen against France and Ireland. So let's see. I'm not against the situation at all. I prefer Colby as a winger, but he's solid and he's got the skill set to be a fullback. So I'm quite happy if he carries on there. And yeah. I don't know if I agree with Shaun. I think Nienobe has found his scrum half in Jaden Hendricks, and I think he will be starting with Buff on the bench, or even Ranach on the bench.
And then, yeah, last question, just to wrap things up. The other matches we're going to, like we said, talk about it a bit more detail over the week. But Scotland's playing Fiji, Wales versus New Zealand, France against Australia, and England versus Argentina. And you'd probably say that all the Southern Hemisphere teams are underdogs. Yeah, so I think there's going to be a lot of rugby to look forward to. We've talked about the RC. There's still Premiership and Top 14 that's happening over the course of the next few weeks. Women's Rugby World Cup is coming to a crescendo, and the Autumn International Series is starting. So a lot of rugby to look forward to. Thank you so much for listening on the Rugby Bits podcast. Please follow us on Twitter. Please follow us on our social media channels, and we will see you hopefully later this week. Bye-bye.